You're listening to Jaime's Local Love, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.
Hi, everybody. I'm your host, Jaime Soretta. On this podcast, we celebrate everything local. And my next guest is a guy who loves his neighborhood so much that he wanted to create more spaces to dine and hang out and bring the community together. So I'd like to introduce Joey Lucidi with Westside Concepts. Joey, thanks for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So tell me where you're from originally.
Born in Detroit originally and raised in San Diego, and moved out here to Peoria in 2006 when I got married.
What was it about Peoria for you?
Well, it was Arizona at first. Just had to get out of California. Wanted a new start, wanted a fresh start, and just got lucky and went to Peoria first, and really never left.
Yeah, never left, and then started becoming a creator in that community. So Westside Concepts, what is it?
Yeah, well, we started. I was doing other businesses and had restaurant in my blood. My parents owned growing up, and found that there was a huge void in our community of a family restaurant. And so we decided to do it ourselves. And so we opened our first one in Peoria, Haymaker, and that kind of started Westside Concepts to who we are today.
Because you had the Haymaker,
yeah,
which is named the Haymaker because?
Well, I mentioned we were doing other businesses. Yes. We were in a home remodeling business, and we bought it in May of 2008, and everybody knows what happened in 2008. Wasn't a great time to do remodeling. We held on for a few years and ended up selling and losing a lot, and took the little bit that we had left and decided to open my first restaurant on my own, and that's where the word Haymaker came. It was kind of our last ditch Hail Mary of just, hey, let's make this work, or we're going to get a job somewhere.
The final punch,
yes,
if you will.
Final punch.
And it's been successful because how many Haymakers do you have now?
We're opening our fourth one this summer out in Verado, so we have 3 currently right now.
Where are they?
Peoria, North Peoria, the original Lake Pleasant and Happy Valley, and then we have one off of Thunderbird and 101 in Peoria, and then one down in Goodyear off of Litchfield and McDowell.
And that's one of your many concepts. How many concepts do you have? Where are they?
Well, we've got a few brands. We realized quickly that we had a lot of creativity in our company, not just myself, but a great corporate team, and we wanted to try new things. So we opened a couple Mexican restaurants called Cantina Hueros. We have a few coffee shops called Northwest Coffee. We have an event center, a Firehouse Event Center, really cool spot in downtown Peoria, the original fire station of Peoria. And we just opened up Copper and Sage right down the road from here just a couple months ago. Yeah,
very convenient for us over in Central Phoenix by the TV station.
Yeah, and probably one of my favorite restaurants we've done just because we've always wanted to take and rehabilitate an old building, and we got a couple really old buildings, and we're able to do some really cool things there.
Because let's talk about this old building. I remember going to that old building during the pandemic, picking up a margarita to go. Was it Sombreros?
Los Sombreros. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Great guys. Kurt, the owner there. Just some bad timing with COVID, like a lot of us had. Yeah. And I was fortunate to pick it up early last year, and we completely gutted it and repurposed a storage room into a little kind of a speakeasy with a private room, and we're really proud of it. It's taken off very well. We've got some really good reception there.
Okay, so you said it sounded like a storage room. You're talking about that private dining space, aren't you?
Yeah, well, not just that, the whole Blue State bar.
Oh, wow.
There was empty kegs in there. There was an old Coke refrigerator. We walked in, and I remember showing it to my chef and my operations guy, and they were like, well, what are you going to do with this? Yeah. And I was like, this is a really cool space. I think we can kind of take this. And then there was like a little room in back that was too narrow to do anything, and so we can put one table, and we call that the Gatsby Room, and it's behind a bookshelf, and it turned out to be a really cool spot. Thank you to my designer, Nicole Herman. It turned out phenomenal.
It did, because I think a mind still blown on the storage. I love what an entrepreneur will do with what someone else was using as a storage space. And now I think of it, I got to visit you on Good Morning Arizona over at Copper and Sage. It's right on Camelback. Camelback and what, 3rd
Street. Yeah.
3rd Street. And it looks to me like 2 beautiful historic houses and not someone's storage space. Yeah. So you have the big, beautiful restaurant that is very manly leather, kind of old school. I feel like I should drink a bourbon in there. And then you have the speakeasy space that is beautiful.
Yeah, that's a great part about old buildings with brick. The insides don't age as well, but the outsides look better and better as the years go by.
Yeah, very cool. It must have been interesting doing all that transformation. You said you were in remodeling.
Yeah,
and I guess you kind of still are.
A little too long and a little well over budget. Old buildings can be tricky. There's some really good restaurateurs here in town that have done some amazing things with old buildings. So that's what kind of we wanted to try. Learn that, you uncover a lot of problems and mistakes when you start going into old buildings. So it was pretty costly, but it turned out well.
Yeah, it turned out beautiful. So Copper and Sage, give them a look. Come on by, go grab something to eat and drink. I want to go back to Detroit because that's where you grew up. That's where you learned about the restaurant.
Really grew up. Look, I'm a homer. I'm a Lions fan, so this is a great year for us. But I moved out of there when I was 5.
Oh, okay.
So
where were the restaurants?
Yeah, we had a few in A&W out in Michigan. And then some ice cream, some hamburger places, Spanky's out there. But I always had a connection because all my family was back there. So we would go back every year, so I got really familiar. But San Diego is my hometown. That's where I grew up. That's where I was able to work in my parents' restaurants since the age of 12 and get all the experience that we have today.
What kind of restaurant did they have in San Diego?
They had quite a few. Number one pizza place in San Diego for quite a few years. Number one sub place. Now, their last restaurant was called the Hamburger Factory. It's actually still there. The guy they sold it to just resold it. I thought about going back and trying to buy it, but no thank you in California. And that restaurant was very, very similar to what I've done with Haymaker. I'm not going to lie. I stole a lot of ideas from my parents, a lot of things that I saw work very well for them. So I got to continue that same vibe.
So did you think you would continue that same vibe and go into the restaurant business?
No, I remember when I was managing Hamburger Factory when I was 17.
Big dog.
I've been serving since I was 14.
Wow.
And, writing the schedule, doing the orders. And my dad was looking to sell at that point, and I was about 17, 18. And he told me, Joe, why don't you just take over this place and you can pay me over the years? And I remember like the exact conversation and what I said. And boy, I've eaten my words, but I said, there's no way I want to be in this business when I grow up. And, I was going away to college. I was on golf scholarship. I thought that was my path. It wasn't. Things happened and came back and, you had to go get a job. And what do? You go back to the restaurant industry because that's what I knew. Yeah. So I've tried a few times over the years to get out, and it just keeps pulling me back in.
Tell me about the golf.
I played in college. I was on full ride. I was ranked in the country. I thought that was my path.
Yeah.
Little car accident, wasn't completely major, but it tweaked my back enough where pulled me out of practice for a little while, and I lost my drive. I lost my passion to practice, and ended up back in the restaurant industry. Having fun and working, and never really got back into golf. I tried later to play and some mini tours, but it didn't work out.
But I heard the words having fun and working. So you really maybe fell in love with the restaurant business over again?
I think the only people that survive in our industry are a little crazy.
In a good way?
Yeah, you have to love restaurants because they're tough. They're really tough. Not just the hours and the weekends and everything, but something new is happening every day. Even after 30 years in this business and thinking I've seen it all, things come up and it just blows your mind, and you're always reacting to everything. And that's part of the fun of it.
Yeah, putting out fires daily, unexpected.
Yes.
So give me an unexpected fire on a random day.
Oh.
It's a random Tuesday in July.
The problems have changed now to where they used to be with me in operations to where I am now. So the problems I used to deal with would be, servers not showing up or a cook not showing up or having your whole kitchen line walk off the line on Mother's Day. Yes, that happened one time. And me jumping on the line and cooking with another manager trying to figure it all out. Those things have happened, but now I'm at a point where I'm not in the restaurants every day. And it's good and bad. I miss some of those things, but the problems now tend to have bigger dollar signs on them and a lot more stressful because they involve everybody's jobs. We've got over 450 employees, and so every decision we make, every problem we have can affect other people's livelihood. And we're very cautious of that. What's a crazy problem? People suing you for no apparent reason because they think they should. The bigger you get, the more people attack you. And some of the lawsuits are just frivolous and unwarranted, and we win them all, but it's just a part of the business that why would we have to do this?
Yeah. Soup too hot kind of situation.
I slipped and it doesn't matter. You're wearing 9-inch stilettos. So that's our fault. So
you mentioned the old firehouse, the OG firehouse in Peoria. You've created it into an event space. What happens there?
So my brother had it as a distillery and was making some incredible vodka and gin, and just COVID it was before COVID, but some life happened and we talked and I decided to jump in and turn it into an event center because we weren't getting the daily traffic. And so we turned it into an event center, knocked out the distillery and created a really nice, elegant space that has a nice rustic charm. Still got pieces of the fire station in there, the big garage doors up front. A lot of the Peoria firefighters were stationed at that station back in the 70s and 80s. So it's got some really cool vibe, and it's in downtown Peoria. It's the original fire station of Peoria. It's a beautiful center. We do a lot of great events there.
How many different concepts do you have, or restaurant spaces do you have?
Right now we're at 10, and we're opening 11, 12, 13, and 14 this summer. Well, by October.
So what's coming up? What's happening?
So right now our next one opening would be Maple and Rye up in the Grand, so Sun City Grand. Really great restaurant. We're kind of helping out, joined forces with the HOA there on the building they own, and that should open up late February, early March. We've got Haymaker going in the Verado. We've got the new, the original Haymaker that we opened 10 years ago, almost 11 years ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That's getting moved across the street because we've outgrown our space.
Cool.
And so we're doing that this summer. And then we're keeping our original space. It's just too sentimental for me. So we're keeping it, and I'm turning it into a place called Four Corners Tap House. Another need for our community, just to have that a little more crafty sports entertainment place. Not so much a traditional sports bar, but cool craft beer and some great chef-driven menu items.
And creating those spaces in your community was important to you because you saw that lack of kind of a community hang.
Yeah.
So how did you really drive that in with your different restaurant spaces?
It's weird because I'm not a chain guy, right? I don't go to chains. I've taught my kids not to go to chains. I try to teach everybody I know not to go to chains.
Buy local, support local, eat local.
Bad people at chains. It's just I know that when I support local, that dollar's staying in town. Okay, the employees are there, and I get it, but the owners are reinvesting their money back in the town. So that's important for me. But at the same time, I've learned a lot from chains. One of my first big jobs outside of my parents' restaurant was I was the youngest general manager in the country for Outback Steakhouse.
Wow.
Back when Outback used to be great.
A lot of graduates of Outback Steakhouse. It seems like they had a great community.
Unbelievable. It's funny. I hire people, for the last 10 years, and when they come on board, and the first thing they'll ask, a lot of them, and they'll say, "Hey, were you with Outback?" And I said, "Yeah, were you?" And they said, "Yeah, you run your kitchens a lot like Outback." And I said, "Well, they were pretty darn good at it."
Yeah.
I mean, we used to do millions of dollars for dinner only 7 days a week back in the day. And so I got to learn some really good ideas and how to structure a business around those chains. I've just tried to really maintain that we don't want to be them. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't go out and do 10 or 15 Haymakers. We do so many different brands because I never wanted to get caught in that corporate world where, you're just another chain.
Yeah. And you're a busy guy because not only with 12, 13 projects happening right now, you have a family.
Yeah. I will say, we wouldn't have any of the restaurants without our team. We've got amazing people that handle a lot of stuff for me. I get to focus on some different ideas now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do. I've got a beautiful wife, Tanya, and 4 amazing girls. Going through the teenage years of girls is quite the process. And
the haymaker.
Experience. Yeah. I feel like I get hit sometimes. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. And so how do you manage your time?
I've worked so hard to try to respect my team's time that for many years I didn't respect my own time. And by finally getting to the point where I think I do a good job of respecting my teams, I'm able to be a little bit selfish and start putting some parameters around my time. Still not great at it. Still try to do it. Still work on it all the time. But I try really hard to put some parameters around not working on certain days, not working after a certain time, because, being in the restaurant, right, you talked about fires. There's always fires, and they always need to be put out, but most of them can be put out tomorrow in my position right now. And trying to get that off my plate, that I don't have to do everything today because tomorrow's always going to be there.
Yeah, and important for people to remember to, be present with a family during this, especially those teenage years.
Well,
those
and I wasn't
years.
for many years, and so and there's it's affected certain things, and so now it's time to fix that.
And restaurateurs will say that it's a tough business because they have to be at work.
All the time.
In the news business, we have to be at work when people are at home, or when people are out dining.
Yeah.
So you make that sacrifice, and it is a sacrifice.
Oh, holidays, weekends, nights. I mean, for 20 years, those things didn't exist to me. It was just another day because we were always working. And so, it's a tough business.
So in 10 years, you have done a lot. What would you tell that person who, they've got that burning dream. They really want to make that jump. They want to open that restaurant, and they want that to be their future. They're looking at you going, how do I get there?
Well, after I try to talk them out of being in the restaurant industry.
Because why?
So few and far make it, and that's not a bragging point. That's a sad thing. I see a lot of people dump their entire life savings into a restaurant. I guess for the right person who's been in the industry and done different positions, it's the right move. It is. The problem is most people who get into the restaurant industry are good at one thing, whether maybe they're a great cook. Okay, that's awesome, but there's a bigger part of the business that you need to know. Or, hey, I've been a server and I know this industry. Okay, but you don't understand back of the house, and you don't understand you can make more money off of your back door than your front door. And so I would recommend that they go and they work every position in a restaurant for somebody else, and do it from multiple people so that you get different perspectives. That's probably my biggest strength, is that I got to learn mom and pop from my parents, and they're awesome. They had so many successful restaurants. But when I went to Outback, I learned completely different things. And then I went to other companies. I went to House of Blues. I went to American Golf, and I got to learn different ways of doing the same thing. And then I got to put it all together and at least try to make the best scenario. But I had all this experience. Right. You got people that they worked for one boss, and they think, well, they do everything right, I'm going to go own it. It's very hard to do.
Yeah. So after you try to talk them out, then what would you say?
I tell them to go get some experience.
Yeah.
Get as much experience and humble yourself. And I mean, go clean toilets.
Yeah.
Go understand what you're going to ask somebody else to do. I remember when I started out, I was 12 years old, and I was pretty cocky. Like, my dad owned the place. My mom and dad owned the place. So I said, Dad, I think I could be a cashier. And my dad goes, no. And he started me off as pretty much dishwasher. I cleaned the bathrooms at night, and he was tough on me. He was fair, obviously, but and he made me work all the way up, right? And so now when I asked a new 16-year-old busser to clean the bathrooms, I don't feel bad. Yeah. I've done that. I get it. It's not where you want to be, but that's the job right now. And by knowing every position, it gives me sympathy. Maybe that's empathy. Yeah. But I don't feel guilty about asking anymore.
Yeah. So that's good. That's a good space
Experience.
to be in. Yeah. That comes from those years of doing it.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
What are you loving in Arizona right now? What are you eating? What are you drinking? What are you doing? What are you loving?
Well, November to April, it's hard not to love everything about Arizona.
Yeah.
I love this state so much. What am I eating? I am the guy that's going out to everybody's restaurants. I rarely eat out at our restaurants because I love supporting other people I know, new restaurants. So I move around a lot.
Who's one to watch in Peoria besides you, or featuring you? We know you.
Who's one to watch in Peoria? Matthew down at Peoria Artisans doing a really good job. Mario out at Osteria Mia out in Norterra is doing a good job. I love what my team's doing. I really do. I can't take the credit anymore. I got a chef that does Cantina Hueros. I think we have the best Mexican food around.
Really?
Oh, it's fantastic. Everything's made from scratch. It's awesome. There's still not a better breakfast place than Haymaker, in my opinion. I mean,
What's the breakfast? What's the breakfast that you order there?
Breakfast at Haymaker?
Yeah.
Oh, country fried steak all day long.
Okay.
I mean, since I was 15 years old, if I'm going to a restaurant, whether mine, somebody else's, I'm eating country fried steak and eggs. It's my favorite. And then drinks. I'm a bourbon guy. We were top 100 bourbon bar in the country at Haymaker. Copper and Sage has a dynamite bourbon list, a whiskey list, everything. Lately, I've been squeezing in a little more high-end tequilas. I never was a tequila guy because I think I was just drinking bad tequila.
Well, it happens.
Cuervo, But you start drinking the good stuff and you start realizing it's got a lot of characteristics like bourbon that I like.
And it's very interesting. It's very storied as well.
Yeah.
So it's fun to follow that romance. Thank you so much for being with us, Joey Lucidi, the owner of Westside Concepts. Check out his places.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Jaime's Local Love, the podcast. I'm your host, Jaime Soretta. Our technician is Tom Heidinger. Our editors are Lorraine Shearing and Gina Coy.
Jaime's Local Love, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.